What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to Sportskeeda MMA News. Jon Jones officially confirms that he's fighting former heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic this year, but it's not when you think. Francis Ngannou sounds off on the UFC for unintentionally hurting their fighters. Canelo Alvarez absolutely punks Kamaru Usman's manager Ali Abdelaziz. Former two-time bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw is disappointed with Petr Yan's losing performance against Aljamain Sterling. And the Count, Michael Bisping, speaks on Henry Cejudo's chances against Max Holloway and featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. All this and more on today's edition of Sportskeeda MMA News. If you see any of your favorite fighters mentioned in today's video, make sure to blast that like button. Recently, it was rumored that the UFC was targeting a return for former light heavyweight champion Jon Jones during International Fight Week in July against former champion Stipe Miocic. It turns out that the date has been pushed back all the way to September. This was shortly later confirmed by Jones on Twitter and noted that the move was not his decision. He said, "Stipe is saying that he will be at his absolute peak in September. I'm disappointed but patient. I want the heavyweight GOAT at his absolute best. I'll wait till September. No excuses." The 26-1 Jon Jones last fought in the UFC over 2 years ago in his 11th title defense against Dominic Reyes. This was at UFC 247. A bout that more than half the media outlets and yours truly scored in favor of Reyes. His dominant performances over Alexander Gustafsson, former champion Daniel Cormier, and current light heavyweight champion Glover Teixeira are just a few examples of his near-flawless reign. The 20-4 Stipe Miocic has been away from the octagon since losing his belt to Francis Ngannou by devastating knockout at UFC 260. His championship reign included knockouts over Alistair Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, and 2 wins over Daniel Cormier. Do you think we will see a better version of Stipe come September? And do you think a move up to heavyweight could be detrimental to Jon Jones in the octagon? No doubt the winner of this potential fight will be deemed the #1 contender and next in line to face reigning champion Francis Ngannou, assuming he's with the UFC. Leave a comment down below and you might be featured in tomorrow's video. Speaking of Francis, the reigning UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou recently took aim at the UFC for taking advantage of fighters in negotiations. Speaking to True Geordie, the #4 pound-for-pound fighter in the world spoke about the business side from the fighter's perspective, something he's had quite a bit of experience with over the last year with his recent turbulent UFC negotiations. Here's what Ngannou had to say.
Fighter doesn't have anybody to speak for them. Not even a union. Let's think about this. I mean, I never been in the board meeting of a company, of a big company, but let's just speculate. They are in the board meeting of a company. What do they do? They think for the benefit of a company. That's how every business works, right? So if, in other hand, fighter is out there and they don't have nobody to represent them, so who would think for the fighter? Most of the time, they would take this decision which is good for them. They don't even intend to hurt fighter, but he ends up hurting fighter, you know. So in my perspective, I think they should at least have like a fighter, not a union, but a fighter representation in the board meeting.
The 17-3 Ngannou is currently recovering from surgery on his MCL and ACL due to injuries sustained in camp ahead of his successful title defense against interim champion Ciryl Gane at UFC 270. Although Ngannou's return to combat sports might not be in the octagon, it might be a dance with the Gypsy King Tyson Fury in a boxing ring. Who does Francis Ngannou fight first when he fully recovers? The winner of Miocic vs. Jones or Tyson Fury? Quite possibly the best boxer of our generation, Canelo Alvarez, just completely snubbed one of the most successful managers in MMA history. Ali Abdelaziz, the manager of pound-for-pound king Kamaru Usman, among a list of other champions and top contenders, prompted a response from Canelo on Twitter by writing this. Canelo is an absolute chicken. He's fighting guys with 5,000 followers on Instagram. These guys will never do nothing for his legacy. Now, I understand why he doesn't want to lose to someone like Kamaru Usman. This is chicken style. No risk, no reward. And Canelo immediately fired back saying, "Who the f*** is this?" Then Abdelaziz ended off with this. "You know who I am. You know what's the difference between you and Kamaru Usman? You've been ducking Gennady Golovkin for 2 years now, but Kamaru has fought everybody the UFC threw at him. I'm being very nice to you because it's Ramadan. This little spat no doubt was to revive the hype from just a few weeks ago when Usman publicly spoke about his willingness to box Canelo on Mexican Independence Day. The 20-1 Kamaru Usman most recently defeated Colby Covington at UFC 268 in his 5th title defense, and is most likely fighting Leon Edwards this summer during International Fight Week. We'll see how the UFC screws Leon Edwards this time. In 60 pro boxing fights, the 57-1-2 Canelo Alvarez has only fallen once to the legendary Floyd Mayweather Jr. He fights against Dimitri Bivol on May 7th for the WBA light heavyweight title. Questions for the fans out there: if Conor McGregor never boxed Mayweather, do you think boxing super fights would even exist today? Former 2-time bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw recently spoke his mind about the title fight rematch between Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. Sterling controlled Yan for most of the rematch at UFC 273, which prompted some honest words from Dillashaw.
I think most of us thought Yan was going to win that fight. You know, the way the first fight went down and how he defended his shots and ended up manhandling him towards the end of the fight. And I think that was Yan's game plan once again. But those 2 takedowns that he got out of 22, he gave up his back, you know. And I was very surprised with the lack of knowledge that Yan had in that position. Going the wrong way on the body triangle and the chokes, not fighting it the right way. I mean, you can't have holes in your game and you call yourself the best.
The 18-4 Dillashaw has 2 highlight knockouts over Cody Garbrandt, and he was the first person ever to finish former champion Renan Barão. Dillashaw is coming off a split decision victory over Corey Sandhagen in his octagon return after a 2-year suspension for testing positive for EPO. Is TJ Dillashaw the next fight for champion Aljamain Sterling? While you're still here, subscribe to Sportskeeda MMA and hit that bell. And last but not least, the former UFC middleweight champion Michael Bisping recently gave his thoughts on the King of Cringe, Henry Cejudo's return. The former 2-division champion has recently re-entered the USADA testing pool and even met with UFC brass to discuss his options for a future return fight. Cejudo has made it clear that he wants money fights with Conor McGregor, featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski, and even bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling, but he's also mentioned former champion Max Holloway as a legacy fight. Bisping doesn't seem to agree that moving up in weight is the best idea. Here's what he said.
Holloway, Aljo, TJ, Volkanovski. I'll be honest, I'd like to see all of them. I don't think he'd do too well in all of them. And again, I'm not being mean to Cejudo. He's a 125er, and then bulked up to 35. 45 and 55, it's a little bit much. There's a reason he fought at 125. You can't just keep putting weight on. Can you imagine against a Max Holloway, how long the frame is of Max Holloway compared to a Cejudo, and the speed and the striking? I mean, you never know. I'm not saying he couldn't do it. It's going to be a tough time.
The 16-2 Cejudo most recently fought against Dominic Cruz to defend his bantamweight strap at UFC 249. This was about 2 years ago. Spanning 2 weight divisions, Cejudo has victories over flyweight GOAT Demetrius Johnson and even finished TJ Dillashaw in 32 seconds. Would it be wise for Cejudo to ease his way back into the UFC instead of looking for an immediate title fight? Let us know. That about does it for Sportskeeda MMA News. Here are some of the best comments from today. Absolutely, Francis will be exposed. He'll be lucky to lay a hand on Tyson. Tyson is way too slick for Francis. He needs to realize he's not Conor McGregor. He won't make 100 mil for that stuff. It seems like everyone sucks and are all white belts for Nate Diaz, lol. If you like this video, please like, comment, and share. Your comments could be featured in the next Sportskeeda MMA News video. We always deliver daily content, so make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything going on in the MMA world. For updates, quotes, and exclusive interviews from all your favorite fighters, follow Sportskeeda MMA on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for tuning in.